It has been more than 60 years since The Wild Wild West first aired, and the actors who brought it to life have lived through weddings, scandals, heartbreaks, and transformations that nobody could have predicted. Some of them became legends of the stunt world, quietly risking their lives season after season without a single headline. Some carried the weight of personal tragedy far heavier than any villain the show ever invented, and some simply disappeared, not from memory, but from the world itself. Did you know that one key figure in the show's unforgettable action sequences went on to write a book about those years? And on the very day his best friend from the cast died, the two men were reportedly already deep in planning their next project together. These are the stories behind the faces, where they came from, what they built, what they lost, and what they left behind. We are saving the most beloved for last. Number 1. Whitey Hughes. As henchman, guard, stunt coordinator, Robert James Hughes, known to absolutely everyone as Whitey, was born on November 9th, 1920, in Arcoma, Oklahoma, right on the border between Oklahoma and Arkansas, not far from Fort Smith. He was raised on a family farm, and what that life taught him: how to drive a team of horses, how to ride and break difficult animals, how to read terrain and react physically to the unexpected, became the foundation of one of the longest stunt careers in Hollywood history. When he first appeared as part of the Wild Wild West stunt company in 1966, Whitey Hughes was 45 years old and had already been working in the film industry for nearly 2 decades. The family moved to California in 1936 when Whitey was a teenager, and he graduated from high school there before finding his way into the film industry as a fully credentialed Screen Actors Guild member in 1947. From the very beginning, his unusual physical profile, he was one of the smallest stuntmen working in Hollywood, made him extraordinarily versatile. He was regularly called upon to double for women in action sequences, something he did without hesitation and with remarkable skill. His most famous such moment came years later in The Stuntman, 1980, where he can be clearly seen in a dress leaping over a cliff while holding an umbrella. He did it with complete commitment and apparently great personal satisfaction. On The Wild Wild West, Whitey served not merely as a performer, but as the show's stunt coordinator across all 4 seasons from 1965 through 1969. That role meant he was responsible for designing, organizing, and executing every single dangerous sequence the show produced. He assembled the core team of stuntmen who gave the series its kinetic, relentless energy. Dick Kangy, Red West, Bob Herron, and Tommy J. Huff. He worked directly with Robert Conrad, who was notoriously insistent on performing his own stunts. Managing a lead actor who refuses to be doubled requires exceptional patience and trust, and Conrad's respect for Hughes was total and documented by everyone who was there. Outside of the Wild Wild West, Whitey's filmography reads like a chronicle of American cinema itself. He was one of the gang members surrounding Marlon Brando in The Wild One, 1953. Whitey Hughes died peacefully in his sleep on July 7, 2009, at his home in Somerton, Arizona. He was 88 years old. For a man who had spent 6 decades throwing himself off cliffs, out of windows, and from moving vehicles, dying quietly in his own bed feels like something he had genuinely earned. He had received the Golden Boot Award for his lifetime contribution to the Western genre, one of the highest honors that world can bestow. He shared his memories of the Wild Wild West and his friendship with Robert Conrad in Tom Weaver's 2010 book A Sci-Fi Swarm and Horror Horde, giving fans one final glimpse into what that set was truly like. His legacy is every fight scene you ever loved and never thought twice about. Number 2. Red West as henchman, Roy, Thug, Robert Jean. Red West was born on March 8, 1936, in Memphis, Tennessee, the son of Lois and Newton Thomas West. He grew up in the Hurt Housing Project, a world away from Hollywood and everything it represented. And yet his story would eventually make him one of the more quietly remarkable figures in American entertainment history. Not primarily because of the roles he played, but because of the life he lived between them and around them. When Red West first appeared on The Wild Wild West in 1967, he was 30 years old, carrying a lifetime of experience that no acting school could have manufactured. The defining relationship of Red West's early life was his friendship with Elvis Presley. They met as teenagers at Humes High School in Memphis, and from the beginning, West was loyal to Presley in ways that went far beyond professional obligation. He served in the United States Marine Corps from 1956 to 1958, stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, and remained in contact with Elvis throughout his service. When Presley returned to civilian life, Red West joined his inner circle, first as a driver, then as bodyguard, confidant, and all-round protector. For more than 20 years, he appeared in 18 of Elvis's films during the 1960s, including Viva Las Vegas and Harem Scarum, playing small parts while serving as physical backup on and off screen. It was through the Elvis film world that Red West developed his stunt skills and contacts. He had been a Golden Gloves boxer and a college football player, and after becoming friends with actor Nick Adams, he landed his first real stunt work on the television series The Rebel. On The Wild Wild West, he appeared in 36 episodes as a henchman and physical presence in the show's universe of action and intrigue, developing a genuine friendship with Robert Conrad that extended well beyond the set. Conrad later praised West's work repeatedly in interviews and brought him along to Ba Ba Black Sheep, where West had a regular role as Sergeant Andy Micklin. The most devastating chapter of Red West's life came in 1976, when Elvis Presley's father, Vernon, fired him, along with Red's cousin Sonny West and fellow bodyguard Dave Hebler, attributing the dismissals to overly aggressive tactics. The three men responded by writing Elvis, What Happened?, published in the summer of 1977, which detailed Presley's escalating drug dependency. Red West always insisted the book was written as a warning, an attempt to force Elvis to confront what he was doing to himself before it was too late. It was published barely 2 weeks before Presley died, on August 16, 1977. The timing devastated West, and the controversy surrounding the book followed him for the rest of his life. After Elvis, Red rebuilt his career as a full-time character actor. Beyond Ba Ba Black Sheep, he appeared in Roadhouse alongside Patrick Swayze in 1989, playing Red Webster, an auto parts store owner who becomes one of the film's moral anchors. And that role became the one most people recognized him by in his later years. He also appeared in Natural Born Killers' Glory Road, Francis Ford Coppola's The Rainmaker, and on the television series Nashville in 2015, which turned out to be his final screen credit. Red West died on July 18, 2017, in Memphis, Tennessee, at the age of 81, from an abdominal aortic aneurysm that struck without warning on a Sunday afternoon. His wife, Pat, described him as a straight shooter in every sense of the word. He was survived by her, 2 sons, and 6 grandchildren. A man who protected the people he loved with fierce, sometimes costly loyalty, and who spent the rest of his life carrying the weight of what that protection had cost everyone involved. Number 3, Tommy J. Huff, as henchman, Pete Thomas. Tommy J. Huff was born on January 29, 1943, in Los Angeles, California, to Harold and Betty Huff. He was a California native in the truest sense, someone who grew up within reach of the film industry, but had to fight his way into it through his body and his nerve, rather than through any inherited advantage or existing connection. When he first appeared on The Wild Wild West in 1968, Tommy Huff was just 25 years old, and he was beginning what would become one of the most prolific and quietly spectacular stunt careers in the history of American film and television. Before cameras, there was the military. Huff enlisted in the United States Army, and it was during his service that he discovered boxing as a serious competitive pursuit. The sport honed his reflexes, his physical control, and his tolerance for absorbing impact in ways that would prove directly valuable to every stunt he ever performed. When he returned to civilian life, he left boxing behind and turned his focus entirely toward the film industry, making his stunt debut in 1968 on The Wild Wild West itself, where he joined the company assembled by stunt coordinator Whitey Hughes. Huff worked in 18 episodes, playing various henchmen and a recurring character named Pete, and on a set full of hardened professionals, he held his own without hesitation. What followed was a career of extraordinary range and scale. Tommy J. Huff went on to perform stunts in over 300 films and television productions across nearly 4 decades, a number that is genuinely staggering when you sit with it. He was in Smokey and the Bandit, Chips, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Octopussy, Scarface, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Big Trouble in Little China, Lethal Weapon 2, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Dumb and Dumber, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Batman and Robin, The Green Mile, Pearl Harbor, The Fast and the Furious, The Matrix Reloaded, and Sin City. He doubled for DeForest Kelley in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Tommy J. Huff died on April 8, 2006, in Tehachapi, California. He was 63 years old. He had been working in major productions right up to the final years of his life. There was no grand farewell, no career retrospective event or tribute ceremony. He was a professional who worked and then was gone, exactly the way most of the men who quietly built American cinema went. Over 300 productions, hundreds of thousands of audience members who thrilled to sequences he designed and executed with his own body. And almost none of them ever learned his name. That is the paradox of the craft he chose, and he chose it anyway, every single day. Number 4. Bob Herron as henchman, soldier Robert Duane. Herron was born on September 23, 1924, in Lomita, California. His early childhood was shaped by the dissolution of his parents' marriage. His mother remained in California and eventually remarried a man named Ace Hudkins, one of Hollywood's most prominent horse suppliers for film productions, while young Bob went to live with his father in Hawaii. He grew up in the islands, swimming, high diving, and living a physical life outdoors that could not have been better designed, in retrospect, to produce a stuntman. When Bob Herron first appeared on the Wild Wild West in the mid-1960s, he was already in his early 40s, a seasoned veteran who had been working in Hollywood since 1950. The path into the industry came through his stepfather's connections. After serving in the United States Navy during the South Pacific campaigns of World War II, Herron returned to California and began wrangling horses on movie sets for Hudkins in 1946. 4 years later, in 1950, he made the transition from wrangler to stuntman, and that step opened one of the most durable and distinguished careers in the profession's history. He appeared in The Ten Commandments in 1956, Rio Bravo in 1959, Spartacus in 1960, and The Absent-Minded Professor in 1961. An early filmography that represents the genuine golden age of Hollywood production at its most ambitious and physical. On the Wild Wild West, Herron appeared in 17 episodes across the show's run from 1965 to 1968, most prominently as a stunt double for Ross Martin's Artemus Gordon. His athletic background and physical similarity to Martin made him the natural choice, and the trust between them, between an actor and the man responsible for protecting his physical credibility, was built carefully over 4 years of shared work. He was part of the same core stunt company as Hughes, Kanji, Red West, and Tommy Huff, men who understood each other's capabilities, limits, and instincts so well that the show's physical sequences had a coherence and believability that was genuinely rare for television of that era. After the Wild Wild West, Herron's career continued with the same relentless pace. Bob Herron died on October 10, 2021, at the age of 97, in Thousand Oaks, California, from complications following a fall. He was survived by his wife Lynn and 4 children, 97 years, a Hawaii childhood, a Pacific War, a Hollywood career that began when Truman was president and stretched into the social media age. Over 6 decades of active work, hundreds of productions, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every great physical sequence in dozens of beloved films carried some irreplaceable piece of what he had given. He earned every one of those years. Number 5. Michael Dunn as Dr. Miguelito Quixote, Loveless. Gary Neal Miller was born on October 20th, 1934, in Shattuck, Oklahoma. He was born with spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, a form of dwarfism that limited his height to 3 feet and 10 inches. What it did not limit was his intellect, his ambition, or his determination to be recognized for exactly what he was, an artist of extraordinary depth. He later took the stage name Michael Dunn, and when he first appeared as Dr. Miguelito Loveless in the Wild Wild West in 1965, he was 30 years old and already building a reputation as one of the most fearless and gifted performers of his generation. His early life was defined by dazzling overachievement. He entered university at 15. He graduated with honors. He was a seriously trained vocalist and pianist. He formed a successful nightclub act with singer Phoebe Doran before either of them found their footing in Hollywood, and Doran appeared alongside him in several Wild Wild West episodes. He was nominated for a Tony Award for his Broadway performance in The Ballad of the Sad Cafe and won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award for the same role. He was also nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Ship of Fools in 1965, the same year he debuted as Loveless. Oscar nomination, Broadway recognition, television stardom, all simultaneously at age 30. As Dr. Loveless, Dunn created one of the most genuinely menacing and emotionally complex villains in the history of American television. The character was not played for laughs despite the show's playful spirit. Loveless was brilliant, bitter, and wounded. A man of immense gifts who believed the world had stolen from him, pursuing vengeance with the cold intensity of someone who has stopped pretending to care about consequences. Dunn understood that character from within, and his 10 appearances gave the Wild Wild West something it could not manufacture otherwise: a villain the audience feared and uncomfortably understood. On set, he was known for extraordinary generosity, and once pulled co-star Phoebe Doran clear of a collapsing set piece with no concern for himself. Off-screen, Dunn used his public profile to advocate for children facing physical challenges similar to his own. He made personal appearances, wrote letters, and spoke honestly about the psychological weight of a condition the world too often defined before it looked for anything else. Michael Dunn died in his sleep on August 30th, 1973, in London, England, while filming another project. He was 38 years old. The cause was heart failure brought on by complications of chondrodystrophy, the condition that had distorted his ribcage, compressed his internal organs, and slowly restricted his lung capacity throughout his entire adult life. He had known this was coming and worked anyway. When the 1979 reunion movie was produced, the writers wrote that Dr. Loveless had died of ulcers born of frustration, a small, affectionate tribute to a man who deserved far more time than he received. Number 6. Douglas Henderson as Colonel James Richmond. Douglas Henderson was born on January 14, 1919, in Montclair, New Jersey. He served in the United States Marine Corps during World War II, and the discipline and authority of that experience would inform nearly every role he played for the rest of his life. When he first appeared as Colonel James Richmond in The Wild Wild West in 1966, Henderson was 47 years old, a seasoned character actor whose bearing carried a weight that could not be manufactured. It had been earned. His path to Hollywood ran through the stage. After the war, Henderson worked extensively in stock theater companies on the East Coast, developing his craft in live performance before making his film debut in Stanley Kramer's 8 Iron Men in 1952. What followed was a steady career built on reliability and authority. He appeared in John Frankenheimer's landmark thriller The Manchurian Candidate in 1962, playing Colonel Milt, the military superior of Frank Sinatra's character, in one of the most acclaimed American films of that decade. He also played Congressman Morrissey alongside Elvis Presley in the 1968 comedy Stay Away, Joe. On The Wild Wild West, Henderson played Colonel James Richmond in exactly 10 episodes from 1966 through 1969. The head of the United States Secret Service, the direct superior of James West and Artemus Gordon, and the institutional backbone that gave the show's universe its sense of real consequence. The role required someone who could project authority without condescension, and Henderson delivered it effortlessly every single time. He appeared across the show's final 3 seasons, providing continuity and gravitas in a production that could easily have felt unmoored without him. Outside the show, Henderson was one of the finest and least celebrated working actors of his era. He made 6 guest appearances on Perry Mason, 6 on Mannix, and 6 on the FBI. He had recurring credits on Bonanza, Lassie, The Virginian, and Mission: Impossible. After his final film role in the 1970 thriller Zigzag, he continued in television through the mid-1970s. Very little is documented about his private life during those final years. The record simply grows quiet, and then stops entirely. Douglas Henderson died on April 5, 1978, in Studio City, California. He was 59 years old. He took his own life by carbon monoxide poisoning. His ashes were scattered at sea off the coast of Los Angeles. Whatever brought him to that final moment remains private and undocumented. What we have instead is the work. 10 episodes in which he made the world of the Wild Wild West feel real, grounded, and inhabited by human beings who had to answer for what they did. That, in the end, is all most of us leave behind. Number 7. Fred Stromsoe as henchman/guard/stuntman. Frederick Stromsoe was born on June 15th, 1930, in Denver, Colorado. He grew up in a working-class household and arrived in Hollywood through a combination of stage experience, physical presence, and the kind of luck that tends to reward people who are already prepared. When he first appeared on the Wild Wild West in 1966, Stromsoe was 35 years old, a professional with solid television experience and the kind of lean, authoritative screen presence that producers of 1960 Seconds action television found consistently useful. His discovery came through the stage. He was performing as a leading man in stock theater productions in California when director Felix Jacovi's saw him and arranged his entry into the industry. Stromsoe made his screen debut in 1949, and the career that followed was defined by range and endurance. He appeared in G.I., Blues with Elvis Presley, The Love Bug, and What's Up, Doc, among his film credits. On television, he was everywhere. The genre landscape of the 1960 Seconds took an audience. The man from U.N.C.L.E, I Spy, The Time Tunnel, Gunsmoke, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Route 66, and 77 Sunset Strip. He was a constant working presence in the infrastructure of American television for over 4 decades. On the Wild Wild West, Stromsoe appeared in 18 episodes from 1966 through 1969 as part of the show's core company of henchmen, guards, and physical performers. The same reliable ecosystem as Whitey Hughes, Red West, Herron, and Huff. He was dependable, physically believable, and gave every appearance, however brief, a solidity that the show required. That is not glamorous work. It is essential work. His most recognized role came after the show, when he joined the cast of Adam 12 as Officer Jerry Woods, a recurring uniformed presence in the world of the Los Angeles Police Department that ran through much of the series' long run. Adam 12 was one of the most watched police dramas of its era, and his role in it gave Stromsoe his most sustained public recognition, professional, headstrong, and utterly dependable in a role that asked exactly that. Fred Stromsoe died on September 30th, 1994, in Los Angeles, California. He was 64 years old. He was survived by his wife, Nancy Berry. He had worked continuously in the entertainment industry from 1949 through the early 1990s, over 4 decades without pause, without star billing, and without the kind of attention that makes careers feel visible from the outside. What he left behind was the work itself. Westerns, comedies, police dramas, spy shows, and science fiction, all of them slightly more real, slightly more grounded, and slightly more alive for his having been in them. Number 8. Ross Martin as Artemus Gordon. Martin Rosenblatt was born on March 22, 1920 in Grodek, Poland, into a Jewish family in a region still raw from the First World War. He was 6 months old when his family emigrated to New York, settling on the Lower East Side. Before he learned English, he already spoke Yiddish, Polish, and Russian. He later added French, Spanish, and Italian, 6 languages in total, the vocabulary of a man who understood from childhood that identity is a performance and transformation is available to anyone with the discipline to pursue it. He graduated magna cum laude from the City College of New York, then earned a law degree from George Washington University. He chose acting anyway. His first major film appearance was in George Pole's Conquest of Space, 1955. Director Blake Edwards cast him in a series of increasingly prominent roles, culminating in the 1965 comedy adventure The Great Race, where his work as the treacherous Baron caught the attention of CBS. That led directly to the defining role of his life. When Martin debuted as Artemus Gordon in The Wild Wild West in 1965, He was 45 years old. The role fit him almost supernaturally. Artemus Gordon was a master of disguise, a gadgeteer, a linguist, an actor within the show's own narrative. Martin designed most of his own disguises, sketching them personally and realizing them with the makeup department in total secrecy. Most of the cast had no idea what he would look like on any given filming day. He was also, as one episode revealed, a concert-trained violinist, a talent the writers incorporated directly into the character. He was nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series for the show's 4th season. What the public did not see was the physical cost. In 1968, Martin broke his leg. Then, before that injury healed, he suffered a near-fatal heart attack. The production temporarily replaced him with other actors, including Charles Aidman, William Schallert, and Alan Hale Jr., for 9 episodes. He returned to finish the show, but the network had already quietly begun treating him as a liability. Behind all of this, Martin had also endured the death of his first wife, Muriel, from cancer in 1965, the same year the show launched, and had remarried in 1967, adopting his second wife, Olavi's children, while building a new family around the edges of a body that was beginning to fail him. After the series, Martin devoted enormous energy to charitable work. He became national chairman for the theater arts for the Children's Asthma Research Institute and Hospital, and organized celebrated celebrity tennis tournaments throughout the 1970s to raise funds for the cause. He reprised Artemus Gordon in 2 Wild Wild West reunion movies in 1979 and 1980. At the time of his death, he and Robert Conrad were reportedly deep in plans for a brand new series. On July 3, 1981, Ross Martin collapsed while playing tennis in Ramona, California. His heart, which had already nearly killed him 13 years earlier, gave out entirely under the intense summer heat. He was 61 years old. He was pronounced dead on arrival at Pomerado Hospital. Conrad said publicly that he wept when the news reached him. Martin was interred at Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. He had appeared in more than 200 productions. He spoke 6 languages. He held a law degree. He designed his own faces. And in the end, he was a man who gave up a safe and certain life to pursue art, and created something that 60 years later remains genuinely irreplaceable. Number 9. Robert Conrad as James T. West. Conrad Robert Falk was born on March 1, 1935, in Chicago, Illinois, to parents who were barely adults themselves. By 1958, he had moved to Los Angeles at 23, shed the name Falk, and reinvented himself completely, not as performance, but as declaration. His breakthrough came quickly, a recurring role on Hawaiian Eye as private investigator Tom Lopaka, 1959 to 1963, which established Conrad as magnetic, physical, and radiating coiled confidence. He also recorded pop singles as Bob Conrad. He was an actor, a singer, a trained boxer, and a man defined by physical audacity. When the Wild Wild West was conceived, James Bond on horseback, 2 19th century Secret Service agents fighting supervillains across the American frontier, Conrad was the only natural choice for James T. West. He was 30 when the show debuted in 1965, and the character fit him like a second skin. He lived West. He performed the vast majority of his own stunts throughout the entire run. During one episode, he fell headfirst from 12 feet onto a concrete floor. Production shut down for nearly 3 months. He came back and finished the season. The show made him a star. He was inducted into the Stuntman's Hall of Fame for this work, the only lead actor from the series to receive that honor. After the series, he starred in Ba Ba Black Sheep as real-life World War II ace Pappy Boyington, fighting to save the show from cancellation by personally lobbying television station managers. He appeared in the miniseries Centennial, played G. Gordon Liddy in a television biopic, and reunited with Ross Martin for 2 Wild Wild West reunion movies in 1979 and 1980. He hosted the PM show with Robert Conrad on national radio from 2008 to 2019. He had 8 children from 2 marriages, 2 of whom followed him into acting. In 2003, he was involved in a devastating drunk driving accident on Highway 4 in California. His blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the legal limit when he struck a vehicle driven by 26-year-old Kevin Burnett. Both men were seriously injured. Conrad pleaded no contest to felony DUI. The accident left him partially paralyzed with lasting speech damage. Kevin Burnett died in 2005 from injuries attributed directly to the crash. Conrad carried that weight to the end. When the 1999 Hollywood remake of Wild Wild West swept the Razzie Awards, Conrad appeared at the ceremony, accepted 3 statuettes on behalf of the actual recipients, and delivered them personally. A pointed, unapologetic statement about what had been done with the show he built from nothing. That gesture says everything about who he was. Robert Conrad died on February 8, 2020, of heart failure at his home in Malibu, California. He was 84 years old. He was James West. And for everyone who ever watched that show and felt the world become briefly more dangerous and more alive, he always will be. If this video brought something back for you, or showed you something you had never known, leave a comment below. Tell us which story surprised you the most. Subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the lives behind the names. Because every great show is a story about people, and the people behind this one were extraordinary.